All right, hello. I think we will kick off to begin our panel and press conference on the future of personal investment in a post-COVID-19 world. I'm Isabel. For those of you who don't know me, I report on Fintech for Sifted, which is the sister publication of Financial Times. We were spun out about a year ago to report on startups and to try and give better coverage to the European tech ecosystem. So we have three speakers today who are at the heart of fintech, and the idea is to kind of give the audience an insight into who these individuals are, who they work for, and why they share a common goal around investing. There will be time for questions at the end for the press. So there is a Zoom chat feature, and if you could send me your questions in advance, I'll call on you towards the end of the conference so that you can ask the participants. So we'll kick off with Eric, who's the co-founder of Bitpanda, and he's going to give you a brief insight into the partnership announced this morning with Speedinvest. Eric.
Thank you, Isabel. So great to have you all here together in this new kind of press conference. I actually prefer this over because then we can gather from everywhere in the world. So it's an exciting journey we have been through the past 6 years. So we started 6 years with Bitpanda, with this company. And the idea was in general to give easy access to everyone for crypto. This is how we started, to buy Bitcoin, because when we saw it, 2013, it was so hard for everyone to get in that asset class that we said this will never get mainstream. And we build a system that is so easy as if you would buy things on Amazon. You put your credit card in or whatever, you just buy things online as you're used to. And this is the key for us. So to give everyone access to investments. And why I say investments, because this is what we're shifting already. We're moving. So we have become over the years the #1 crypto broker or crypto on-ramp platform in Europe. And now we are transforming to a premium NeoBroker. And I'm convinced that we will in the next years become the #1 premium NeoBroker in Europe, as we have done with crypto, because we have our system. This is completely scalable, and we will give the same access to all kind of investment classes, asset classes, to absolutely everyone. Same we did with crypto. And we built this company in a slightly different way, which is untypical for a fintech, I would say, because we built it in a way that is, we bootstrapped it. We are profitable since 2016, and we still are. And today is a very exciting day for us, because the first time now we get external funding. So we have now our first institutional investor on board, which is Speedinvest. We know Speedinvest for a long time, and especially with Stefan, who we have a very good relationship over time. He helped us a lot, and I think now is a great time, as 2020 is the year of growth for us. We want to go into new markets. That means what I can also announce today is that end of April, we will go into have a full launch in France, following in the next month by Turkey and Spain. And Speedinvest is a perfect partner for us, because they will help us to scale this company, to grow, not only internally with all the difficulties we are going to face. Every company that is growing so fast is facing, because in the past 12 months we have grown 100% in staff. So we're now over 180 people in Vienna in our office, and we try to even increase the size of our team to 300 by the end of the year. And so I'm very happy to have Speedinvest, and especially Stefan on board, who has already invested and helped scaling the who is who in the fintech area in Europe. So I think this is a good time to give you the word, Stefan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric and Isabel. So I'm Stefan. I'm heading up fintech at Speedinvest. We've been fortunate to support a lot of successful fintech founders across Europe from day one, including the likes of WeFox and Billy in Berlin, or Curve and Tide in UK, or Luco and Lemonway in France. And I've been also very active with N26 from day one. So we're very happy to announce that we will support Eric and Paul and the team to really gear into high growth across Europe and really move into aggressive geo expansion. We've known those guys for many years, and we've been following them, their growth and their success. And for us, there's been primarily 3 reasons why we decided to invest now. One is that they've been able to demonstrate their ability to scale. They now have over 1 million users in various European countries. That's one. Secondly, they have proven that they can move from crypto to other asset classes like commodities and gold, and are of course preparing to move into all other asset classes that are relevant for investing in a fractionalized way. And so for us, it's less about crypto, it's more about the know-how in tokenization that the team here in Vienna can apply to all other asset classes and do this in a better way than anyone currently here in Europe. And finally, very importantly, they have built a super strong compliance and regulatory team around them. They're very well known here in Austria and beyond to actively work with the regulators to be fully compliant and offer a compliant and secure service to their users. So those are the main key reasons we're super happy to import them to support Eric and Paul.
Thank you, guys. So I'll take over and just kind of, we'll do our panel and a Q&A to try and get to understand you guys a bit better. Eric, I wanted to come to you first. You mentioned obviously that you've gone from crypto to broadening out. The trend generally is to have NeoBrokers go into crypto, and that makes perfect sense because it's obviously a very profitable business. So what is it about the alternative assets, the opportunity that you see there? Because revenue-wise, you guys are fine. What is it that these alternative assets do you think offer for a business and also for investors?
So, I mean, first of all, if you make it in crypto, you can make it everywhere, I would say. That's usually a very roller coaster industry, and I think we've proven there. And what really makes it, for example, last year we have digitized real physical gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. There's currently in Europe no cheaper way to buy physical gold in any quantity. You can have a fraction of real physical gold that is not possible to deals that are unbeatable. And to just use this technology, what we learned from crypto, we can put to all kind of asset classes. And we see right now with precious metals that there is a huge demand for this. People are, people that used our platform before for crypto now also use us for gold, but we have a lot of customers that say, okay, crypto, I don't know yet what this is too complicated for me, but this gold offering is great. So we also get new customers from there. And we have already talked to our customers, and they are happy to use the same experience and get the same experience for more asset classes. And also what I've seen that, for example, from in the NeoBroker classification or companies, more than 60% of the users have never traded before. And that just shows us, if you give the people the right tools, they will use it, not because there's no interest in it, because it was too complicated before. So it's access, usability, and just give everyone the same deal. It doesn't matter if you have 100 euro to invest or 100,000 euro to invest.
Very, very quickly, do you expect alternative assets to overtake crypto in popularity on your platform? Just a
what do you mean with alternative assets?
As in gold, tokenized, non-crypto, as in not Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc.
Let's say, for example, right now we are very crypto heavy, of course.
Yeah. And do you expect that popularity to shift maybe in the next?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So not in terms of nobody will use us for crypto anymore, but as we offer more any other kind of assets, people will start using this, and we will get more users on board that would have never gotten into crypto, but they will use us for other asset classes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously this partnership was agreed before COVID hit. This is the first real serious downturn in 10 years. So how does that play into your ambition of democratizing finance, Stefan? Is this a time when you expect to see people become increasingly interested in the products, and not just in the short term become interested, but to sustain that interest into becoming long-term users?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, we clearly didn't invest because of COVID. We made that decision a while ago. You know, wrapping up these deals always takes some time. So it's a bit of a coincidence we're having this right now in this crisis. But of course, I would say that the crisis, COVID is accelerating a trend that we've been seeing for a long time, which is kind of democratizing trading and investing. And obviously, players like Robinhood in the US, and also Revolut in Europe have shown that there is a very large portion of the population that does want to have easy access to any kind of alternative assets, and also, you know, want to become active in making sure that they have a sound personal future. I think this is something, as Eric said, 60% or more than 60% are first-time users with a lot of these NeoBrokers. And so I think that trend will continue, and COVID, if anything, will accelerate that. I mean, clearly, everybody's talking about the pension gap. I think that plays into this a lot. People are worried. They don't know how they will make ends meet once they're 60 plus. And so everybody realizes that it's in your own responsibility to understand better what investing is all about, and try to, yeah, get access to any kind of asset class like professional traders do. So that's a huge trend. COVID will accelerate it, and our investment in Bitpanda is an investment into this trend for sure.
I would be interested if pension funds start to heavily hedge with crypto. So we'll see what happens. And we've also got Timm from FT Partners here. Timm, you came from the traditional financial world, coming from Morgan Stanley. How much of a threat are these neo-brokers, you know, Barks, Trading 212, Bitpanda? How much of a threat do they hold to the incumbents, do you think?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Isabel, Eric, and Stefan. Really excited to be part of this today. So look, I think it's a great question, and yes, I spent the first sort of a good decade of my career at Morgan Stanley, and if you think about it, today actually I think a lot of that world is converging, and what has happened in the sort of neo-broker space, particularly in the US, is I think a little bit as Eric had alluded to, and Stefan, you had a huge reduction in prices. B, you had a 10x improvement in user interfaces. And C, that together has led to just a much larger addressable market of people who can and want to trade shares and be active in that market. I think in Europe, actually, that could be even more dramatic, because as we know, particularly in continental Europe, the culture of owning shares, trading shares is probably less pronounced than the US. So I think the ability by guys like Bitpanda to innovate in this market and really create a new market for fractional shares, for 24/7 trading, for highly scalable and robust systems and a beautiful user interface, I think is enormous. And clearly nobody's really cracked it yet in Europe. You see a lot of competition there and various players trying it out, be it sort of vertical focused pure plays like the Buxes and Trade Republics, but also some of the challenger banks like Revolut trying to get into the game. But look, I think it requires a lot of a mix of sort of really tech scalability and regulatory know-how to crack this market, and that's, I think, where Bitpanda definitely has a great chance. But then look, on a bigger scale, you also see a lot of sort of old incumbents continuing to up the game. You saw Morgan Stanley buy E-Trade for billions of dollars. You saw Schwab buy TD Ameritrade. So what has happened is that a lot of the new players like Robinhood and others in the US have actually led the incumbents to up the game as well. So I think we'll see a similar trend in Europe once we get to real scale, that some of the incumbents will have to improve their own offering, and the beneficiary will ultimately be the consumer.
Yeah, I do want to come back to your point, Tim, and see if you expect any of the European players to be acquired in the same way that we've seen in the US. But we will come back to that. Just before we do that, we also have Paul, who's another co-founder of Bitpanda, on the line. Paul, can you just explain how random the price of gold and Bitcoin and other cryptos really is? I mean, some would argue the stock market in some ways can be irrational, but how random is the price, and how can investors expect to in any way predict the change in price?
Hello. Yes, so gold and Bitcoin in general are obviously a volatile asset class, and we have seen that in terms of a financial crisis, like right now with the COVID situation, that all assets were affected. If there is panic in the market, everybody wants to pull out money from the market, and Bitcoin and gold were no exception. So in the highest panic, all assets were down. So I wouldn't say that there's any safe havens really anymore, because everything is so connected. But it's also not like Bitcoin and gold are just random. They don't just do whatever they want, but they are very news driven. So let's say there is a new technology coming to Bitcoin, or right now there is the halving event is coming in a few months. And all those things actually tend to influence the investors. And with Bitcoin, we are currently still in the price discovery phase. So news has a bit of a higher impact than on stocks, or maybe even on gold. So even small positive news might actually start a bigger swing, but also negative news. For example, the famous, China is banning Bitcoin again, can have a very drastic effect to the downside. But if you actually follow the market over a longer term, you see that especially the midterm to long-term trends in crypto and in gold are very much always fundamentally driven.
Yeah, I mean, they have mapped in many ways the ups and downs of the larger stock market. But for example, what would happen in the crypto world? You can't buy Bitcoin, as in no company can acquire Bitcoin. So what might happen in the crypto world that we would expect to see a price drastically change, for example? Just a couple of examples for people who aren't familiar with the ins and outs.
So I think you can't really compare a stock to crypto. So what really helps, for example, Bitcoin as an example, is technological improvements. For example, if you think about scaling Bitcoin, you want to go from maybe 1 million and 10 million users to 100 million to 1 billion users. And for this, there's a technological change required. And Bitcoin is very heavily developed. So there's hundreds of people thinking about this all the time, completely non-profit. And if there is breakthroughs, this has always a very positive effect. And the other side is the infrastructure. If bigger players are entering the industry, if banks are changing their approach to actually dealing with this asset class, this is also hugely positive. And to give a very concrete example, if Amazon decided to instantly allow Bitcoin payments in the payment process, I think this would be a huge push to the Bitcoin price. So there's many things in the real world who can have a very big impact. Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing investors can follow and try and work out when might be the right time. Let's move on. Obviously, crypto has some connotations in the mainstream finance world. It hasn't developed the best reputation in many ways. Bitpanda has been some sort of an exception to that, I think it's fair to say. But Stefan, what do you think crypto and other assets that Bitpanda offers gives to the public as an investment product? I don't know if you're happy to say whether you own any crypto. I have many fintech founders who've told me that they have done very well out of it, but won't admit that publicly. But I just wanted to get an impression from you personally of what you think this might offer people as a product.
Well, yeah, I would distinguish here between our investment thesis, which again has been less about investing in a crypto player, but much more in a team that has very substantial knowledge about the technology underlying crypto, i.e. tokenization and blockchain, and leveraging that for all other asset classes, because the infrastructure you're using here allows really a global, easy access type of investing at very low cost, which in the previous infrastructure wasn't possible. That's what we are, as a VC, are interested in. Now, personally, I mean, I have dabbled into crypto, yes, of course, like everyone else, just not just for speculative reasons, but again, to test, you know, how much easier these players have actually made it to access this asset class. And so, of course, I've done my bit of buying and selling crypto personally. I mean, what we do see is that crypto is becoming more mainstream. We see it on the private front. We see it increasingly also family offices are putting some allocation to crypto. And I do think that mid to long term, crypto as an asset class has a very good chance to be picked up by institutional investors in a big way. Again, I think we have all the examples of, you know, R3 and other, you know, bank consortia and banks that have very heavily invested into blockchain technology. And of course, that will have a very transformative effect on especially the infrastructure that is behind people investing. And I think, again, in summary, all of these things will allow you know, individuals to take down the barrier for individuals to really invest in any kind of asset class. And it will also, I think that's also very important, create a secondary market that will allow people to optimize their asset allocation, which today is very, very difficult for any kind of private market investments. So I think liquidity is an important element of what players like Bitpanda can contribute to.
Yeah, I mean, so for those who don't know, I used to report mainly on the crypto space, and the banks that I spoke to still quite nervous. They have the capacity to do this if they want to, but still quite nervous. But you're right that there is some sort of forward trend there, albeit very cautious. On that theme, one of the cautions around crypto is around security. This isn't the type of asset that you can just put in a safe under lock and key. And because of that, several exchanges have been hacked in the past, and other fintechs have had quite public technological issues. Tim, I wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think fintechs broadly understand enough about security, and if not, if they're learning quick enough to basically pass what is a stress test, particularly right now amid COVID.
Yeah, look, I think it's a super important topic for fintech in general, right? If you run a fintech, I think you need three core competences. One, you need real technological competence. B, you need real regulatory competence, and C, you need real financial services competence, right? So it makes it actually pretty hard, and that's why I think it's Stefan and me love the sector, because it's hard to do, and once you crack it, it's very defendable. And I think there's sort of two key risks. One is just scalability, right? And we've seen some platforms, particularly over the last few weeks and months, struggle because particularly in this vertical around trading, you need to have a very robust system to be massively scalable and allow for spikes and activity to be buffered. And I think that's, I'm sure Paul can maybe shed a light on how Bitpanda manages that. And I think the second is really obviously data privacy and intrusion. And again, it's something that I think also in our hopefully at some point post-COVID world will be ever more important, right? As we all work remotely, we use sort of the living room and the home and the workspace become interchangeable, and we carry around data and we send very sensitive data around the world. I think the intrusion and data privacy will become ever more important, but we'll probably love to hear from Paul a little bit how he thinks of scalability and data privacy are being handled.
Yeah, if I could just reframe specifically, maybe Eric or Paul, that point. Fintechs generally are expected to take some sort of hit now because of COVID. I think trading companies are the exception on the most part to that. Paul and Eric, so if basically on that point, what challenges will you face? If not a revenue or user issue, what kind of challenges does this create for a company like yours?
This is a perfect question for Paul. I'd just like to add one more thing. because you started your question for Tim with in the past, many crypto exchanges have security problems.
Mhm.
The problem there was a fast growing industry, extremely fastly growing. And there the problem we faced was that there were like 5 or 10 remote people putting in an exchange and then growth over everything and marketing over everything. That's the problem. In fintech, people are trusting you with their money. That means security has to come over everything. Once you are set with all these basics, and this is a lot to do, and you can't manage that with 5 or 10 people, where half is marketing, then you can go out and grow. But otherwise, this sheer amount of growth and capacity and hits and this will overwhelm you. So first of all, we had to make sure over the years to be really safe because people trusting us with their money, and then you can go out and be loud, I would say.
Yeah, to add on to this, I think what Eric said is very true. In the past, the companies who really in the crypto industry lost funds, I think they were in over their head. They started with this premise of, all right, let's go for growth no matter the cost. And I think in many industries, this can actually work. You can fix it's called technical debt later. But in the crypto industry, if you actually have security issues, you can be exploited to a point where a company is dead. And I think this is a very unique situation that many founders didn't know how to cope with. And I'm very happy that we went the path of sustainable growth, really being always on top of the issues, so that in the end you have a very stable company that is not at risk of falling apart with one single incident, how many of the companies were. And on the other side, as Tim said, scaling is extremely important, because I think from a user perspective, if you want, or if you decide that you want to trade and you want to sign up or use the platform, and suddenly it says like, all right, yeah, there's now a 3-week waiting period to actually get an account, that's an absolute no-go. If this is the point when your company, you say, all right, now it's actually interesting to onboard customers and they can't, I think this is a very big problem. And on the other side, if you already are onboarded and then your service provider is offline for a few days in the most important times of the year, when there's, for example, a 10% move in the stock market, which is completely unheard of, I think that is something that you need to anticipate and that you need to be on top of. Otherwise, you are just really giving away the goodwill of the customers, I think, that they have towards you. And
so if you're on top of those areas, what is the biggest challenge for you guys in a period like this?
I mean, right now is the challenge is obviously if you're at remote work to keep up the productivity. We have 180 people, 190 people who are working remote in a completely new environment, and we need to structure the processes in a way where they can continue to be really productive so that we continue our goals. Because as you heard before, we have some very ambitious goals for this year with release cycles and everything, and we need to keep up. And on the other hand, if you are processing 3 times the volume, you also have 3 times the support requests, treasury, compliance, everything is just scaled up, and you need to work with that.
And that brings me quite nicely onto the point of the challenge of expansion. Obviously, you've chosen France, Spain, and Turkey. Eric, why those countries, and are they ready for a new trading platform or NeoBroker like you?
Oh, they are ready. They are ready. Because there is no real good offering, I would say, I would personally use. The reason why in those countries, let's say the fintech sector is still quite young and doesn't have the highest adoption is the same what I described at the beginning. If you give people the tools, they will use it. If you have, let's say, broker services, where you need days of onboarding, paperwork, and then you have different markets, limit order, market order. Most people don't know what this is. You have to get rid of all these obstacles and provide them with trust and the usability they are used. If I buy if I buy an iPhone, it comes without a manual. It has to be intuitive. And our challenge is to build a system that makes investing and trading as intuitive as buying an iPhone. You don't need a manual for it. You don't need any knowledge before it. And yeah, so this is why France, Turkey, and Spain, because of they are also the biggest markets also in Europe, are a perfect target for us.
I don't know how accurate the EY adoption report is, but they said that France only has about 35% fintech adoption on their latest report. So what are your ambitions, for example, if we just use France? What would be a good amount of users, or maybe you can say in terms of volumes? I know it's quite difficult to put a number on it, but it would be great to get some sort of idea of how you expect this to begin and to see adoption happen.
This is quite hard to say, because currently we're still much focused on the crypto and the precious metal side. But as soon we're moving more to the let's say mainstream asset classes, then I have very high hope, and then I'm also looking for 7 digits customer base there. How fast we can achieve this, I can't tell you. But this is, as I said before, this is our growth year. So this is our priority and our focus to onboard people there and also listen to the feedback and then adopt. It's a journey. It's not like you bring out a product one day and then you're done. This is the journey starting then once you go live there.
And to that point, did you consider an acquisition? I want to get Stefan and Timm's thoughts quickly after this on acquisitions, but did you consider an acquisition to try and boost your chances of infiltrating these new markets?
Paul, you want to, or
say that again?
No,
I mean,
cool.
in general, we were always in the mentality, there is a reason why such companies are then for sale, and we have a very good track record of doing our things ourselves, but we are not against M&A. So if there is really a perfect target, and especially I think in the regulatory side, you can actually buy a target with a license that actually is a shortcut to go to your direction much faster. And so, yes, we are on the lookout, but I don't think there's anything in the pipeline right now that we could.
No. But so far, also regulatory wise, I think we have staffed over the past 2 years very well, and so we have received our PSD2 license in Austria in record time. That was the fastest issued PSD2 license ever in Austria, and we did everything in-house. Yeah. And we will continue to do so for more licenses as well. But yeah, as Paul said, if there is a good target, if something comes up, I mean, maybe Timm already has something in the pipeline to present us afterwards.
Yeah, where are all these venture capitalists who are going to be doing the acquisition? Let's hear from them. So Stefan, I will hand over after this, but Stefan, if you could just let me give your thoughts on potential M&A in the trading side of fintech, maybe banks, maybe venture, maybe private equity. What are your thoughts there?
Well, look, I think Bitpanda, of course, right now is in a very special situation as they are already profitable. They have the luxury and the liberty to actively be a participant in any kind of M&A development if it happens. But we're very relaxed about this. As the founders said, there's a organic market entry that makes a lot of sense. They have the capital to do it. We can always raise more money in the course of the year if we need it. And yeah, if there's appropriate targets that it can either accelerate the geo expansion or accelerate product development and licensing, then the guys will certainly look at it. I think in other sectors outside of trading, it's a different story. A lot of players are challenged; they're not profitable yet, and so I do think that depending on how long this crisis will take, you will see increasing M&A activity, not just between fintechs, but also between incumbents in fintechs. But this is still going to take some time to evolve.
And Timm, if I could ask for your predictions on M&A, perhaps actually most interestingly between incumbents and new fintechs in Europe.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think first point, just on the vertical specifically to anything around crypto or trading, capital markets, I think that's one where you've seen already a massive amount of M&A over the last few years with some of the transactions I mentioned earlier. I think it's a sector where scale is incredibly important because ultimately you have a very is sort of a fixed cost base, and the more trades you can do at some point that just incremental margin. So you see that trend. I do think we haven't seen a lot of incumbents buying fintechs. I think we see more of that with some very large recent transactions with the likes of Credit Karma getting sold to Intuit, Plaid getting sold to Visa. So I think we'll see more of that. And potentially now with potentially the valuation gap, I call it, between incumbents and some fintechs maybe narrowing a little bit, I think that makes it potentially more attractive for some incumbents who have failed to really innovate and provide their consumers with new ways to trade or lend or borrow or invest, to basically buy some of these fintechs if they either decide that's the right time to exit, run out of funding, or just the valuation discussion becomes an easier one and the bid ask can be matched.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of those conversations will have to happen over Skype and Zoom. No fancy dinners.
Exactly.
I wanted to pass over to my colleagues in other areas of the press. I'm just going to go through the questions in order. Jakob asked about the terms of investment, but I know that the companies have decided not to make those public. So if it's okay, we'll just move on to the next one. Alexander, if you could unmute and ask your question. He's from Crypto Magazine.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Question is, I hear from a lot of people who want to sign up on Bitpanda, for example, and other crypto companies, deposit money from their original banks. Account managers calling them and say they worry about them because they are afraid that they get scammed. So a lot of them gets calls from their banks, and the banks say company and so on, something like this. Yeah. What do you say to these people?
So I think you were gone for half the question, so I can rephrase it. There is the banks are actually warning their customers if they do business to some crypto companies, or to pretty much all. And I know that there are some reports about this, but this is actually not the experience that most of our customers have. So we also asked some of our customers if they ever had problems receiving transfers or depositing or whatever. And I would say 99.9% of the customers don't have this. There are some banks who have internal rules to actually flag everything that's crypto related as negative. And then they need a physical approval of the account manager actually push through the transactions. And that is very rare and on the bank side. And in general, I would say it's not that big of a problem, because most banks know that because we are working ourselves with banks, that they can trust that our banking partners are doing a very good due diligence on our KYC procedures, on our AML standards and everything. And now that we are even registered as an AML compliant company, this is going down even more. So I would say this is not a problem. And if people are being harassed by their bank, maybe think about changing banks. I don't know.
No, but and also, I mean, over the past years, you always heard that crypto companies have problems to find banking partners. Luckily, because we went very early into the regulated route, and also into the license, got licenses, we don't have any problems to find any banking partners. So I feel like we are in a very good position when it comes to any kind of banking relationship in general. So we have multiple bank accounts in several countries. We don't have any problems finding new ones. And as we are licensed as well, you can't just block a transaction to us. So
Thanks so much, Alex. To your point, I think, again, Bitpanda has been an anomaly in that sense. Other crypto startups have really struggled with their banking relationships, but it's obviously a credit to you guys that you have managed to get through some difficult banking restrictions. Jakob, if I could come to you briefly on your question about institutional investors and whether Bitpanda will remain retail only. Jakob?
Yeah. Hi. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wondered what's your point of view, because recently we've seen that like institutional investors tend to go out of crypto during COVID crisis. Do you see the same for you? And will you focus on like retail customers, or will you also try to onboard institutional investors?
Jakob, institutional investors left all kind of asset classes, not only crypto. This is not a phenomenon for crypto. Actually, crypto is up on a year-to-year basis, and compared to all other asset classes. I mean, when I talk about Bitcoin. So actually, I'm very happy that I'm into Bitcoin. That I have part of my portfolio into Bitcoin. It dropped less, I would say, than overall on the long run. But in general, no, we are onboarding continuously also institutional customers and professional traders, not only on the exchange, but in general on Bitpanda. I wouldn't say, I mean, maybe money left the system in general, left the industry, but that happened to all kind of asset classes. So I wouldn't really agree on that, because quantitatively we are onboarding more and more.
And just to give a bit of an insight on the B2C side, the amount of net inflow of capital into our platform in the last weeks is way higher than in 2017 at the top of the bubble, where everybody was like running around with FOMO and trying to get in as soon as possible. So people are really ready to see opportunities like the drop of the Bitcoin price as an entry opportunity. And these were the weeks with the highest net inflow into crypto. So yeah.
So we're talking here about like on a 24-hour basis that we have two-digit millions. Is that correct? So more than 10 million, let's say, in euro money inflow. So fresh euro coming into our platform within 24 hours. So that is quite a lot, actually.
We're just going to move on because we don't have much time. So we've got two more questions. The next one is from Paul. I'm not going to try and say that. Börsianer Magazine. Paul.
Yeah, hello. Börsianer Magazine. It's
Sorry.
Problem. Eric, you were talking about that beside of cryptocurrencies, it's now also able to trade gold via your platform. So to think a bit further, you also want to bring in like noble shares, bonds, ETFs. Should it be also able to trade them via Bitpanda in future?
I mean, I could now say in general, we don't talk about new products and so on, but it's pretty obvious. So yes, I mean, but we will do it very differently to what you're used before. I would say it's a completely new user experience for everyone, but we will offer all these new asset classes you've mentioned. When I can't promise you when it will be live, but I can promise you that user experience will be completely different to what you're used to.
Okay, but you would need further permissions from the supervisor authorities, or is it also now able?
Yes, and licensing.
Alexander was also asking, are other services planned like staking? Eric.
I mean, we're looking into the stuff. The problem there is, from a technical perspective for us, these things are not that hard. But from a regulatory perspective, from a legal perspective, these things are not that easy. We're looking into this, but until today, I can't promise you, I can't give you a concrete answer, because this is mostly not in our hands.
All right, thank you guys so much. I think that's all we have time for in terms of questions. Hopefully everyone had the opportunity to get what they needed to ask out. Maybe Eric or Paul, if you just want to wrap up and any final comments, and we can say thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, everything is said. I'm very happy about this format. Also, on a technical perspective, thank you very much for participating, setting everything up. A special thanks to you, Isabel, Tim, and Stefan for participating, for helping making this event go live. And yeah, so it will be exciting days, and hope you're all joining us in the future on our journey.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Isabel.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.